Well, the heck with this. Let's just get rolling, okay? We're going to start off with Elizabeth, and then we'll hear from Hanny, and then we'll have a chance for discussion and questions at the end. Thank you very much.
Hey, everybody. I'm going to try to be somewhat brief in reviewing everything so that one, we have time for Hani to present before he has to leave for something else at 2, but also so that we can have a conversation once I've given you some background. So it's fun to see many of you who I already knew and met a few of you who I hadn't met yet. I've been at the university since 2004 as an undergraduate. So from working with the campus center, registrar, different departments. I've met many of you throughout my travels. Now I'm at the AI and Society Research Center as the associate director. And I'm going to be sitting in for the director of the AI Plus Institute as well. Unfortunately, he and the director of the AI and Society Research Center weren't able to be here because they have an associate director candidate coming to campus today for a series of day-long interviews. And so it happened at the last minute, and they're sorry that they weren't able to be here. But I will start with the AI Plus Research Institute. I'm going to start by saying the way AI fits into the campus and the various entities is a little bit confusing. It's difficult to follow. I'm going to try to explain it so that it all makes sense, but ask questions if you have any. So AI Plus is the overarching philosophy toward AI at the campus. And that is to say that AI is and will continue to be further integrated into everything. And so from an educational perspective, a research perspective, and more, we want to see it as AI plus X, AI plus English, AI plus math, AI plus computer science. And so that's the overarching orientation. There's the AI Plus Institute, which really handles the research side of the AI Plus mission. And that's what I'll start by presenting on. Let's see, how did this go? Okay. At the University of Albany, I think it started about 2 or 3 years ago, there was a major investment in AI on this campus. This was before ChatGPT came out, before people were realizing we have to get with the times with AI. UAlbany is actually very visionary and ahead of the curve in terms of AI integration into the academic and research portfolio. And so we had a cluster hire, probably the largest cluster hire in UAlbany history. Maybe some of you will remember if that's not the case, but 27 faculty were hired in a single go with expertise in AI. But what was interesting about it is that they hired them across all schools and colleges. And so, in my home discipline of philosophy, we have an AI person in philosophy. There are several in education. They are in math and computer engineering, and in physics, I believe there's somebody. We have people in sociology and public health. There are more, I'm just not thinking of them at the moment, really truly across all disciplines on the campus. And because of that approach, there was a need to bring them together in a sort of intellectual home that emphasized the AI-ness of their interest and their expertise, because in their home departments, they were maybe the only person at that time doing AI. So Eric Stern and I were sort of in the position of starting up the AI Plus Research Institute, which is part of what we did was hire an outstanding permanent director for the Institute, Prabha Balakrishnan, who again sends his regards for not being able to be here today. But the way that we oriented ourselves was to bring together the community, identify how we could serve this diverse intellectual community as an institute, and figure out the ways that we can support them, build teams, help with their research initiatives, help with their interests in order to make them more effective. And so one of the first things we did was worked with them to identify, what do you see as sort of the key areas that we should be working in AI? And they clustered according to AI for social good. You can see some specific instantiations of that there. Agile and responsible AI, and infrastructure and optimization. And these 7 groups now each have actually extraordinarily active research groups on these topics. I will say, having been a part of different research initiatives on campus, to bring together an interdisciplinary research group on a regular basis and keep it going, it's not easy. And so they've all continued to be very active. Actually, Hani chairs one of our research groups. The vision, and this is best said by Prabha because this is really his vision, but I will tell you a little bit about what he's thinking. The idea is not to sort of identify who should be the winner, what are the best proposals, what are the best initiatives, but allow them to emerge organically from within the community, and ideally in an interdisciplinary capacity. looking at, sorry, this isn't language, and so I'm just having to read it and catch up with what he's going for here. So another is looking at domain-specific policies. So of course, if you're thinking about government or public health or some of the more squarely technological applications, there are policies and approaches that need to be developed and implemented across all of these different domains. And so that's an area of focus. Establishing no harm for humans guidelines, and then workforce development policies. That's a big piece, is the workforce development approach. There's a couple of centers that are associated with it both directly and indirectly. There's the Center for AI Mental Health, indirect connection, but we partner with them closely. Center for Biotechnology, Technology and AI, Igor Levnes is the head of that. We work with him. And then these two centers, which are actually part of the Institute, the Center for Emerging AI Systems, which is a close collaboration with IBM, and the center that I'm now the associate director at, which is the AI Society Research Center. The former is very interesting, but there are many people better qualified than I am to describe it to you. But the supercomputing infrastructure at UAlbany is also really outstanding. And part of that is through collaboration with IBM. And we have research groups that, research collaborations with IBM that sort of have a UAlbany researcher and an IBM researcher work together, solving some critical questions. We talked a little bit about this already. And I'll talk about this in my next slide. So that's very, very briefly AI Plus Institute. I want to leave time for questions. You can ask me many more questions about that. Let me just quickly run you through the AI and Society Research Center, and then still leave a couple minutes for Hani to talk about the college. Let's see. So the AI and Society Research Center grew out of the AI Plus Institute in a sense. So we had actually submitted something to the National Endowment for Humanities, which was well reviewed but not funded. And then there was a SUNY opportunity that came up to create new entities in university centers with focusing on AI and society. And so Eric Stern, who's a faculty member at CEHC, and Hani and I and Jason DeCruz from the philosophy department developed a proposal for, and this sort of starts to further fill out the sort of infrastructure for one part AI and Society Research Center, which focuses on the research, and the other part AI and Society College, which Hani will tell you more about, which focuses on the curricular integration and general sort of academic affairs side of the house. I'll speak a little about the AI and Society Research Center and then hand it over to Hani for the college. So this was the $5 million for departments of AI and society across 8 SUNY campuses. We have our AI and Society College and Research Center. The goal of the AI and Society Research Center is really to, in the way that the AI Plus Institute serves those with foregrounded AI expertise and interest, we're really interested in serving the humanities, the arts, and the social sciences, bringing their expertise to the technical discussions surrounding AI, and also identify opportunities for AI to support them in their own disciplines, and figure out how, let's see, is the themes here? Oh, something just went weird. Let me go to this. Okay, so also to see where we need to protect what is essentially human against the sort of incoming onslaught of AI. And so these themes that we decided, human resilience, solidarity, connection, imagination, flourishing, we see these, at least as a starting point. It's not meant to be an exhaustive list, but as a starting point for thinking about what is essentially human, maybe. How can AI support these things that are essential human values? And how do we need to protect these essential human values from being overtaken by AI? And finding that balance is a lot of what guides the work of the AI and Society Research Center. I don't need to go into detail with this in the time we have. One of the programs that we've been really happy with, which is in collaboration with the college, is our work with the AI and for the New York State Writers Institute. We have an AI and Society conversation series where we bring in writers, really the Writers Institute brings in writers who do everything from, science fiction writers to people who wrote the person who wrote the biography on Sam Altman, the founder of OpenAI. And others. And these will continue through the rest of this term and into the spring. We hope you can join us. We also have a team science research internship program where we have 2 faculty members from different disciplines work with a graduate student and 4 undergraduate students to do research in a chosen topic. So the one with the ampersand are from the AI Society Research Center. We're working on AI and responsibility and the misinformation, and then AI Plus Institute has those in medicine and solar forecasting. And then we have a fellowship program. And so we have our engagement fellows, which come from emergency management, Department of Music and Theater, Department of Sociology, philosophy, educational theory and practice, Department of Political Science. So you can see sort of the disciplinary range of the fellows that we're supporting through our engagement fellowship. And then I don't have time to go through these right now, but maybe we can come back to them. A whole bunch of research fellows as well, working from business to education to communications. We've got public health in here. There's sociologists. There's we've got people from informatics. So kind of really looking at a wide range of faculty members who we're supporting through a research fellowship. Hani will talk to you about the Faculty Innovation Fellowship. I'm not going to talk about CEAIS unless it comes up, but I'm going to end there so that we have time to hear from Hani about the college. Do you want to use it on my computer or do you want to put it up on yours?
I don't think I have time to open the website, so I will just be
Okay.
talking for the next one.
I can open the website. Look at how many tabs I have open. It's too many.
So thank you for having me here today. I'm happy to come back. So I just have 5 minutes today. I have to leave, so I will be rushing in. I'm also going to skip introducing myself. So currently I'm having the role as an acting director. So Jason DeCruz is the inaugural director of the AI and Society College, but he's on sabbatical now at Harvard, so I'm serving as an acting director, and we have an acting associate director now, Mila Gasco Hernandez. She's with the Robert Field College as well as the CTG. She is the director of research. Very quickly, so we have a website online. It just came a couple of days ago. So the AI and Society College reports to the Provost Office. We are the research arm of the AI Plus vision or institute. So long story short, to remember the college, remember 4 things here, like education, empowerment, experiment, and engagement. Yeah. So for education, we are actively working with all 9 schools and colleges to facilitate like having micro-credentials, new modules, new courses related to AI. And the very first low-hanging fruit and our very first initiative is that we are going to have a micro-credential, stacked micro-credential based on 2 100-level course, and then a third 200 or a 300-level course. And this micro-credential is going to be available for all students in every single major. Yeah. So that's the education, like, just to get a flavor of it. Yeah. So empowerment, as Emeritus was saying, like at the AI and Society Research Center, they have AI like research fellows. We have faculty innovation fellowships where they are working on new innovative idea to bring AI in a classroom, for example, yeah, or building AI tools so as they can serve in terms of preparing for the course descriptions, for the quizzes, for the assessment whatsoever. Yeah, so we have offered 7 of these fellowships this year, and somehow you can see all of them here. Anyways, and we have also doctorate dissertation fellows where students also, so we are trying to grow a community. Yeah. So a community of faculty fellows, PhD fellows, and then we are also going to serve master students as well as undergrad students. But this is where we are right now in terms of fellows. So this is basically the empowerment. So we are giving stipends, we are giving course releases, we are giving extra service. So we are funding these fellows. Yeah. So this is the second sort of thing that you remember. The third one, which is experiment. Like I mean, all of us experience now the technical issues with the sound system and so on. So we are going to have a physical location. Like two separate spaces in the lecture center. One of them is going to be the office spaces as well as what we call like a meeting room. And this meeting room is going to be like a room where we are going to innovate AI solutions. So you can ask the AI, like I'm going to attach for example, like a Mac laptop, please make sure that it's connecting and it's going to do this for you. That's one way of seeing this room. Yeah. Another thing is that we can have an active AI sitting in the meeting, yeah, where you can trigger the AI using audio, similar to the way how you trigger Alexa or Siri or whatever. And then you can ask questions and so on and so forth. And we will have like recording of audio, video, so as to create data sets. And these data sets could be available to, for example, School of Education, where they can run AI models to give maybe feedback for the instructors, or even like to do assessment of how students are going to be engaged or not. Yeah, so we're just feeling about that. And we are going to have a makerspace that is an AI makerspace. So you can check the link here. I think like we are having some information about the makerspace here, where we are going to have like a AI-enabled workstations with different specs, where, for example, imagine if students, faculty, and staff would like to get access to the latest AI model without paying like the thing, or you have access to these machines where you can develop AI-based apps, for example. So that's basically the experimental component. And the final component is the engagement. Yeah, so Emeritus mentioned about all the different events that we are doing together. So this is where we are interacting with the AI and Society Research Center through the consortium, and I will leave it for Elizabeth to clarify what consortium is, but at least now you know that there's something. As well as also, maybe this is an announcement, we are working together on what is called like an AI symposium. So this is, I will also leave Elizabeth to give you more details about it, but it's should be like a relatively big event, like a university-wide event, where we are going to, the theme is like the future of education, and you have different tracks related to teaching, learning, workforce development, and the era of AI, like academic integrity, governance, and policies, whatever. So this is part of the engagement. So do not forget like education, empowerment, experiment, and engagement. So with that, I have to leave. Unfortunately, I'm happy to come back again. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So that was just like the, sure, thank you, honey. That was a power speed through, but and now you're left with just me. So and I will be answering, you know, the number of questions that you have that I am capable of answering, which I'm not going to say is 100%, but I can try. And I think we could also have a more general conversation about whatever it is that y'all would like to talk about.
I'll jump in. You mentioned this, but 2 words from the end, academic integrity. Where's the university with its policies having to do with academic integrity? And I'll leave aside the, you know, the faculty run their classrooms and they're the ones that get to make the call. Is there a formal policy in place that's been appended to the academic integrity standards?
It's a good question. So my understanding, again, I'm on the research side, not on the academic side, and so I can't say this with certainty, but at least from what I understand, there is not a formal policy on the academic integrity side. I do think it's under development. That I wish Hanny were able to stay and talk on that, because he was actually the provost fellow on the topic of academic integrity in the context of AI, and so he would have more information about that. We should ask him that. I should have updated information. On the research side, we're having conversations about guidance and potentially policy with respect to AI, generative AI, data protections, things like that. The interesting thing that I have found just in terms of being involved with those conversations is that they're all really bound up in one another. And so different parts of the university have been working in their area on, you know, how do we think about it in the context of IRB? How do we think of it in terms of data security? How do we think about it when you think about the academic integrity policy, we should hope that the research integrity policies that we have align, that we are expecting the same of our researchers as we expect of our students. And so we've been going through this process of, I think, in sort of domain specific ways, developing, researching, having conversations, thinking about ways to bring those policies to bear, and that we will hopefully sort of continue to grow in formal policies that integrate those across the various domains. The question is really, I mean, I think, broadly, the question of academic integrity in the context of AI is really interesting. I've heard lots of faculty talking about the ways they're using it, the ways that they're explicitly not using it. Sometimes fears about how students may or may not be using it. We also have a graduate student who's our GA in the center, who's doing a comprehensive qualitative research study in sociology on undergraduate perceptions of generative AI in the classroom. And what I find really fascinating about her work is, sure, there are students who are cheating. There always have been students that cheat. There always will be students that cheat. This doesn't change.
I've never heard of that.
This doesn't change because ChatGPT exists. And certainly that is happening, but more what you hear from students in these sort of these private interviews where they're sharing their feelings about it is concern and fears about where, because of the generation that they're in and how their minds are developing in the context of an AI-powered world, will they forget how to think? Are they going to become addicted to these technologies? And concerns and fears about becoming addicted. Desires to have AI-free environments and you can't find them. Like you go to Google search now and it says AI will summarize that for you. And so I think young people, this is what my our graduate assistant is finding in her research, is there's a lot more really conscious, reflective use or avoidance of generative AI in the undergraduate population than I think sometimes faculty expect. And faculty are sometimes more concerned about, I'm just getting all AI generated papers, and that is happening. There is some of that going on, and it's a problem. I don't know whether it's more or less a problem than it was, sitting around and hand copying your neighbor's homework. I don't know the answer to that.
The population, in my view, the population remains the same. Generally 18 to 22.
Yeah.
Add a couple of years top of that, their amygdalas still have not become adults, so their strange behaviors and outbursts are not uncommon. Yeah. That manifests itself sometimes in academic integrity issues and other behavior challenges.
Yeah, I think, this is just my own personal self speaking, not on behalf of any of these entities. I hope for an environment where faculty and students are sort of co-investigating this and going through the process of understanding what it means to teach and learn at this time. It's a weird time. I don't think anybody has an answer about, this is what's good for an 18-year-old in their learning process based on their access to generative AI. And so I think where I've seen it in ways that I really admire and appreciate is where faculty are learning alongside their students and sort of exploring how it can be useful and what we have to be careful of. And it's an interesting time. That's a good opportunity, again, plug the conference that we're having in March. Actually, I think our GA is probably going to be presenting. We have a lot of really interesting presentations from people at SUNY, at UAlbany, who are exploring questions of education, learning, teaching in the context of not just generative AI, but AI broadly speaking. I think it should be a good conference. So March 6th through 8th, I'm pretty sure are the dates, and I can send them to Scott. Maybe you can sponsor a delegation from the Emeritus Center to come to the conference. Yes.
I'm related to that. Concerned about research integrity. I was chair of the IRB for a number of years. And as a matter of fact, when Jeff Cohen left, I became the interim director for that area. And I've always found among faculty that one hell of a lot of confusion about these sorts of issues. Is there any connection with what's going on with any of the IRBs associated with the AI plus?
So we had meetings with the leadership of I don't know exactly how you describe the entity, but those.
It's varied over the years.
Okay, so with the IRB folks, let's say.
Yeah.
We've had meetings with the IRB folks and with Laura McCullen. I'd forgotten what her title is. Do you know Laura McCullen? She does research compliance related activities. And so we've talked a lot.
Research compliance is a generic enough term to apply to all of them.
Okay, so we've had conversations with them, and as I mentioned, they have convened their own committees looking at sort of broader research compliance questions, with which AI, of course, fits into those. And we've had some direct conversations about research compliance. And then we at the AI Society Research Center were recently charged to create a set of guidelines. Just as you say, faculty are often confused and don't have direction. And so just to start, here are some guidelines that can give you a starting point as far as how to use it ethically and responsibly within your research. Again, there's things, it's as far as the sort of like co-investigation, learning together, a lot of the funding agencies, this is, I thought was interesting, funding agencies that will apply to, in the last, I've been in this job for 2 years now, I've watched their AI, generative AI primarily use policies evolve over the last 2 years, even just the very same funding agency, they're figuring out like, okay, what is a safe and responsible way is there a safe and responsible way to put your proposal into some generative AI tool to, identify holes or to, reword a paragraph or to help you cut, we've all written proposals that they get to 15 pages and you only have 8 and you have to figure out a way to cut it down while, people are using generative AI to, can you cut this?
Watermark. I'm sorry, I couldn't read it.
I feel you. So I think that, there's all these ways that I think people can be using them really productively. But if you have sensitive data, information, et cetera, and you're putting it into these tools that are training on every input, there could be problems with that. And so you can see certain funding agencies are placing restrictions saying, do not put any part of your proposal into any generative AI unless it fits these criteria. And, NEH, we applied a few times to NEH, I mentioned earlier. The first year, this was on an AI proposal, an AI research center proposal. The first year, they had no idea how to handle generative AI. They were like, I don't know, just let us know, I guess, if you've used it. The second year, they said, please cite it and give a paragraph describing how you've used it. And I reached out to the program officer to say, like, is it a problem if we're using it? We can avoid it. And she said, no, we just really we're curious. How are people using it? Are people using it? And we think this is just an opportunity to learn from our applicants how it's being used. So it's another area where it's like everyone's learning as we speak, and there are opportunities to sort of learn together in that respect. Yes,
And a
Tim.
comment on one of the slides that he had up before, you had something about AI and weather. This
Yeah.
is something that Chris could jump in on too. So we've got a lot of atmospheric data, and then we're gonna try to do traditional von Neumann style computing to figure out what the weather's gonna do. It's a differential equations, which doesn't have a closed form solution. And now we're gonna try and do it with quantum computing. So you can have a whole bunch of states, and then you figure out how to probabilistically harvest useful data if you do all of these things. But it's not AI. It is a particular kind of computer or another particular kind of computer. And I'm troubled that we use that term so broadly without definition.
Yeah.
Perhaps now that we've got a Pope who's a math major, he can make it saying that being mortal sin or something. We have to stop.
Yeah.
But my problem is, what's the definition? It's a hard thing to get people away from saying, oh, AI.
So it's funny because it goes in many different directions, right? So one of the things that I'll be oftentimes asked to come and speak to a group about AI. And the first thing I have to say is, we're not just talking about ChatGPT when we talk about AI, that, sort of language-based generative AI models are not the extent. In fact, they go much deeper and much wider than that. And I don't know the specifics of some of the sort of weather data models that you're referring to, but I think that there are ways in which, and again, my background's in philosophy. There's some ways in which I have no business being involved in AI research center at all. So On the other hand, I do sometimes feel like finally they want to know what the philosophers have to say because, what is a mind? We can tell you that. We've worked on that for quite some time. Anyway, I think who gave a really good presentation is actually a member of the ITS department, gave a really good presentation on the different ways in which we use the term AI. And I don't know the answer. So sometimes they might just be inappropriately using it. But I think also if you're training, yeah, I don't know the specifics of it. I can't speak to. I do know that Eric Stern, who's the director of the AI Society Research Center, has a project that's related to AI with Chris Thorncroft from the Atmospheric Sciences Department. And so maybe if Eric's able to join us sometime in the future, he can tell you more details about
Last
that.
year's Nobel Prize in Chemistry was awarded for incredible progress on protein folding
Mhm.
problem. And the AlphaFold 2 is the machine that's doing it. But the prize, for some reason, went to people.
Mhm.
It went to the person that conceptualized what would form the basis for it, and then the two primary drivers of building
Mhm.
AlphaFold 2. These machines are really stupid. And we've got to keep reminding ourselves that we've got Rumbas at home.
Mhm.
That's generative AI.
Yeah.
And so I tried,
And those aren't stupid. They're very intelligent.
well, I
love
tried,
it.
Depends on students.
I tried letting all of my guidance come, not from my wife, but from a Rumba.
Mhm.
And all it can tell me is whether to go left or right if I hit a table length.
Mhm.
They're very, very primitive. We've made enormous progress on like language learning machines.
Mhm.
But we've also realized that we're so far, much further away from the 35 watts
Mhm.
that we're all given. So I worry about, like lemmings, we're following these two letters.
I think, although I can't speak to the specifics of whether or not it should be considered AI in the context of the weather applications, broadly speaking, I think there's a really interesting and dynamic conversation in terms of, is this something that is going to completely take over everything that we do, replace work as we know it, take over even as a semi-sentient entity itself, and, general intelligence, all these questions about it, the totality that it may become. And others, I'm fond of hanging out with historians who will say, oftentimes in our conversations, they'll say, when someone says, oh, well, as the biggest technological upset in human history in a way that they're like, let's wait and see. We don't know yet how this fits into our history. And so I think your point, broadly speaking, on is this a bubble that will pop? Are we like lemmings flocking to something that may or may not be as significant as we're anticipating it? That's an interesting question. In our own work, I try to think about it not just in the context of AI, but in the context of sort of technological disruption and broadly speaking. And that can apply to all different fields in all different ways, both in terms of opportunity and in terms of threats. And I think looking at it broadly, we happen to be called the AI Society Research Center because that's the thing that we're focusing on at the moment. But I could see our research center's mission evolving over time to continue to keep up with whatever technological disruption is at play in a given moment or anticipated in the future or reflecting on the past. So I think broadly, I hear your point, and I don't have a strong opinion one way or another. I know many do. And you hear, in my travels, I've heard strong opinions on both sides, and surely the truth is somewhere in the middle. Yes.
As a longtime reader of science fiction, I know quite a bit of Isaac Asimov. And a lot of his stuff actually kind of connects to this, developing his 3 laws of robotics. And a lot of his stories were exploring all of the various kinds of issues, ethical issues, what is really human, and just how smart can they be. I'm curious as to whether any of that sort of way of talking about, I'm going to call it robotics / AI, have you've run across any of that in any of the discussions.
Absolutely. So I have a couple of thoughts that initially come to mind and maybe others will look up. So someone sent me a play recently that was written in, I want to say like 1920s, that describes this intelligent machine coming into existence and then eventually becoming conscious of itself and then
You're probably talking about Carl Chapek's RUR.
Yes, that's exactly right.
Yeah.
And so, and it was, I was reading through it and thinking, gosh, this is, and so I was thinking we should maybe do a public reading of some sort of the play, because just the sort of context that provides, is like the concept of this was imaginable even before it was in existence. And that very thought leads me to my next point, which is I read Keach Hagee. Keach Hagee was is the author who came with the New York State Writers Institute, who did Sam Altman's bio. And so I read the bio to prepare for the event, and listening to the description of Sam Altman and his obsession and fascination with science fiction, and then, being the person who creates this disruptive technology, had me thinking, like, to what extent do we need to believe in the impossible in order to get from where we are technologically to some future, not just technologically, but to some future scenario? Actually, Tim, we were talking about the Wishi project, and that's sort of where a lot of my thinking about this began, which is sometimes to do extraordinary things. When you see people who do truly extraordinary things, and to be able to imagine the impossible and imagine it in high fidelity. And I think that's what science fiction writers often do, is imagine an alternate reality in high fidelity and explore all of the contours of what it would mean and how it would come to be, hypothetically speaking. And it's neat to see now some things coming to actually exist that took, I think, a level of imagination and suspension of disbelief to get to the point where we are now, driven oftentimes very personally, in large part, by an obsession with science fiction, which I think is really neat. And I think it could be a fun series to do, like a science fiction book series or reading series that ties it to sort of actual technological realities of today.
The biggest difference I've seen between what I'm going to call them robotics and AI is that the focus seemed to be previously on the phenomenon of looking human, and sounding human, whereas the more recent focus on AI is thinking like human beings. So it's not nearly as physically concrete, but it still approaches almost all of the same kinds of issues.
Yeah, it's again, thinking about my background being philosophy, those questions of like, what is knowing and what is being, and how do we understand the processes of being able to make a choice or think about what's next, and then having those mapped then either imitated by or actually replicated by machines. It's neat. And I think, I think this is a lot of what we think about in the Ann Society Research Center too, is like, what can we learn about ourselves through our investigation into these technologies? And I think, in the teaching and learning space, there's an imperative now to think about what it means to learn, what it means to know, what it means to, and you have to reframe. There's you can call it a opportunity, or that's what I like to think of it as, an opportunity to really re-examine what is it that we're wanting to give to these 18 to 24, 22 plus year olds in their experience that they can't get from the internet in my generation, or ChatGPT in their generation, or whatever, so that we're offering something that is truly transformational and truly valuable to them in this experience of learning and individual identity development. It's a weird time to be doing that. Kind of a cool time to be doing it.
Go back, and during there's a great book, by the way, Frost and Fire. I think that's a short story.
Yeah.
About a group of people that trapped on this planet that's intensely hot or intensely cold. And some subset of them get to this ship. But in the end of it, they take off. everybody else is left behind on the planet to die. And so, whoa, there's,
Yeah.
he needs open questions like that. I want to mention that during the Nixon years, he declared a war on cancer.
Mhm.
And everything became the structure of hop algebras and applications to cancer, or the sociology of slums and applications
Oh,
to cancer. And the cancer war was actually a setback
Mhm.
because we were chasing this phantom goal.
Mhm.
And I think that's what worries me about this one, because we haven't defined it yet.
Yeah.
We really haven't, and yet we're chasing it.
Mhm. Again, I can't agree with you more. I think that there's, and that's in certain respects, I think one of the sort of visionary nature from my perspective of how you Albany approach this by putting people across disciplines, and really a big part of what we want to do in the AI Society Research Center. Like, it's the humanities scholars and the social scientists and the artists who can say, like, let's pause, let's see this in a bigger structure, let's see this in relation to our humanity. And yes, money has to come from somewhere. And so I feel personally pleased to be in an environment that is fairly well resourced in the research environment compared with many that are drying up, especially coming from philosophy. Not big money in philosophy. I don't know if you guys knew that. But I do think that they say there's the boomers and the doomers in the AI space, but I think sort of it's boring to say there's an in-between. Yes, of course there's an in-between, but I think that taking an approach that brings perspective and expertise and acceleration where appropriate and hitting the brakes where appropriate seems like, it's a sophisticated approach to this this sort of new reality, and not just chasing the new shiny thing. And so that's what we hope, I think that's what we intend to do. And it's always good to be reminded if, where we're successful or not successful in that. But it's definitely, I think, and I'm very happy to say that the colleagues that I work with share that orientation. And so we've been able to create programming and initiatives that sort of reflect that balance as much as we're able.
Right, it's sort of AI across the curriculum. If we had an initiative, plutonium across the curriculum, we'd say, whoa, we're gonna stop
Yeah.
right now and decide what's the good part. It's the right thing to do. This is a nuclear age. They should be able to build a bomb, but it's
Yeah.
much more.
The curricular piece I can't speak to, because I think that, again, that's on the academic affairs side, the curricular development side. And Hanny, I'm sure would be happy to come. I mean, when we say we'd be happy to come back, if you guys want us back, we mean it. I think we'd all be very happy to come back and continue the conversation. And the rest of my colleagues could then attend and talk both in the areas of technical expertise, which I clearly lack, and also on the academic side of things, which is just outside of my domain. But again, thinking about AI across the curriculum, there's different, I'm speaking as a private citizen, not with any affiliation at the moment, but there's different ways of thinking about that. And I think in terms of a professional readiness piece, so again, you're 19 years old and you're going to be going out into the job market in a few years, and AI will be a part of that job market in virtually every domain. To say we want people to have AI literacy and competency and understand where they fit or don't fit within that, I think that seems less controversial. I think there are certainly more controversial questions, sort of as you're alluding to. And I think what's going to be interesting, I mean, this is a little bit of a pivot, but it'll be interesting to see. I anticipate change, like our tastes changing even. So, now that it was once that you could be, if you were a very professional writer, you would stand out from the pile because you were very good at professional writing. And if you're reading resumes or reading reading resumes or reading papers or whatever, it'd be like, oh, this professional writer, this is professional and that is compelling. Now, and like, it's so easy to create something that has that polished vibe that I anticipate tastes changing even, where something a little bit more, different, just having other things be valuable in terms of skills and what is beautiful or noticeable or attractive or whatever. And I'm interested to see where that comes from. So where that goes. Do you guys want to wrap? 2:30 is the wrap? I think it's 2:30. So anybody have any other questions?
I watch Sunday morning, usually I tape it and I watch it Sunday afternoon, but there was an artist on, anybody else see CBS Sunday morning? There was an artist on who does these immense montages, and he uses AI. And basically what he's done is he has one to do with flowers. And he just loaded all the information he could find on flowers and said, if we decide to cross-pollinate, what will we get? And he had these imagination,
Yeah.
that's the art aspect of it too.
There's some very cool, actually, we're working with we're seeing about maybe even trying to bring in a commissioned artist or something there's a lot of artists doing really interesting work with AI. And I was at a dinner the other night with the head of the Albany Institute for History and Art and saying, oh, wait, how is AI featuring in the artist community work? But she's like, I'm not worried about it. Artists, something new comes out, they find a way to play with it, they break it, they find a way to make art. Like it's not, it will continue, art will continue to exist through and in spite of AI.
My wife's one of the many people who have retired from teaching and now are in a book group. And she had kind of an interesting experience the other day. One of the math teachers who for years and years taught high school math said, this AI is no big thing. We've already gone all through that with the calculators and then all that sort of stuff and whether we should use it or not. Now you're just using it at a different level. You're making the same sort of decision.
But our math scores keep going down.
Yeah.
That's the problem. And that's the worry with AI.
Yeah.
If the answer is always available.
Yeah.
There was an interesting debate, it was on the news the other day, it was about whether AI should be used